तो क्लास में आप लिख नहीं किया वेट है Good afternoon everyone. My name is Pravin Kumar and today I am going to attend my first in-house training program and the topic is Bloom's Taxonomy. So today we will go ahead and discuss and see about the Bloom's Taxonomy. What is Bloom's Taxonomy? When originally it is formed, and after that how much changes that it takes place. And apart from that, we will be able to see the other parts of the Bloom's taxonomy as well. So first, we will just let us go ahead and just overview about the Bloom's taxonomy. We can call it Bloom's taxonomy and higher order thinking as well. And we will be able to see the revised taxonomy. We can say the old taxonomy and the new term, the old term and the new term. So we can see the comparison between two as well. Apart from that, we will go ahead and explore each labels. So in total, we have 6 labels here. Apart from that, in order to complete or to cover the 6 labels, what are the important questions which will take place, alright? So that we are going to see. So now we will start with the person Benjamin Bloom, who exactly formed or originated or give this Bloom's taxonomy to us. So it was basically originally published in 1956 by a team of cognitive psychologists at the University of Chicago, and it is named after the committee's chairman, and his name was Benjamin Bloom. The original taxonomy was organized into 3 domains, that was cognitive, affective and psychomotor. Educators have primarily focused on the cognitive model, which includes 6 different classifications labels that we can say: the knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis and evaluation. And after that, it was again like the new term was introduced by one of his pupil, a student, and that was in 2001, and it was done by another team of scholars, and which was led by Lauren Anderson, and he was a former student of Bloom's. Apart from that, another contributor, his name was David. So a Bloom colleague who served on an academic team that developed the original taxonomy, or we can say the revised one. And the revised one have again the 6 level, alright, or the 6 types that we can say, and that is what we are going to see into the next level as well, alright. So let me go ahead and tell you something more about Bloom. So it is a classification system, and basically it is used to define and distinguish different level of human cognition. That is thinking process of someone, learning and understanding. And educators have typically used Bloom's taxonomy to inform or guide the development of assessment and instructional method such as questioning strategy, which is most important, alright, because in order to cover all the levels we have to see, we have to focus, okay, on the process, on the questioning level as well, in which we can go ahead and assess pupil. So we can say that the Bloom's classifies ways of thinking from lower order to more difficult or higher order skills, okay. And the original term or we can say that the term which was basically given by Benjamin Bloom, that was in 1956. The first term is knowledge. We will see from the top, bottom to top. So the first is knowledge, then comprehension, then application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. And again, the new term was given by his Lauren Anderson, that was in 2001. So knowledge was changed by remembering, comprehension by understanding, application is remain on its place, that is applying, analysis is analyzing, synthesis was now been changed into creating, and the evaluation is evaluating. Now, so we will start with the one term. So basically, criticize of the original taxonomy has questioned whether human cognitions can be divided into distinct category, particularly or hierarchically categorized or not. Other embrace that utility of the classification system while still recognizing that it does not and cannot represent human thought or learning in all their complexity. Most criticism in focused less on the system itself and more on the ways in which educators interpret and use the taxonomy. And for example, let me take you the example. Teachers may view the system as linear prescriptions, believing that a student must first begin with remembering, move on to understanding, and process through the level of creating. Other educators may place too much emphasis on the important higher order thing at the expense of lower order skill, despite the fact that acquiring a strong foundation of knowledge, information, and facts of essential in this application of higher level thinking skill. Some educators have been proposed an alternative suggestion that the taxonomy should be revised because higher level thinking skill require that students both remember and understand underlying concept first. Others suggest that the taxonomy should be interpreted as a non-hierarchical continuum in which no one form of cognitions is more or less important. While still widely used, Bloom's taxonomy is gradually being supplemented and may perhaps even supplemented one day by new insight into the working of human thought and learning made possibly by advance in brain, imagining, and cognitive science still. It is likely given its logical simplicity and utility that Bloom's taxonomy will continue to be widely used by educators. And now we will be able to go ahead and see the level or the different part of remembering, So in this I can remember facts about the information. And I would like to play a short video for you guys so that we will go ahead and see how exactly first these steps or these types, these levels going to work. Alright, please be online. So now let me go ahead and tell you about the Bloom's taxonomy, the video which I am talking about. And I'm just going to play this video.
Bloom's taxonomy is a toolbox that teachers or students can use to classify and organize learning objectives. Its most popular version is based on the cognitive domain and assumes that learning should be structured from easy to difficult in the following 6 steps. 1. Remember. 2. Understand. 3. Apply. 4. Analyze. 5. Evaluate. 6. Create. On the first level, we learn to remember. There is just rote memorization and recollection of facts without much understanding. For example, if we learn about lemons, we want to remember the name, shape, color, size, and that they are sour. Once we memorize these essentially meaningless facts, we move to the second level of learning. On level 2, we learn to understand. We begin to decode information and learn that a lemon is yellow when it's ripe to eat, and if we take a bite, that it's really super sour. We also understand that lemons love sunshine and that they contain lots of vitamin C, which is a great natural antioxidant that keeps us healthy. Now, as we really understand a lemon, we can work with it. On the third level, we apply what we know. We've understood that while lemons are sour, they are also a great provider of vitamin C. To apply this knowledge in a meaningful way, we could boil a lemon into hot water and add some honey. Then serve this hot lemon to our sick sister who's in need of treatment. On the fourth level, we learn to analyze. This involves examining and breaking down information into components, determining how the parts relate to one another, and finding evidence to support generalizations. We study the lemon flesh, examine the skin, and look at levels of vitamins. We conclude that we can eat everything inside, while the skin tastes bitter and contains traces of toxic pesticides. It ought not to be consumed. Now we are ready to evaluate. We analyze, critique, and compare. To evaluate our lemon as a good source of vitamins, we compare it to other sources, such as oranges and supplements. We look at the following properties: vitamin levels, affordability, taste, and packaging waste. If we evaluate our thoughts critically and without bias, we learn where the lemons score high and where others score higher. Now, after we have learned, understood, applied, analyzed, and evaluated, we are ready to create. As we now really understand lemons, also in comparison to similar things, we can formulate a plan to create our own natural lemonade. It's now easy to come up with a cute shop design, a good name, and a good slogan: natural, healthy, yummy. Bloom's taxonomy was first created in 1946 by American psychologist Benjamin Bloom. The revised version from 2001, as just presented, serves as the backbone of many teaching philosophies, in particular those that aim towards teaching specific skills. Each level usually comes with a clear learning objective that can be tested. Critics of the taxonomy often question the existence of a sequential, hierarchical link between each level. What are your thoughts? Please share them in the comments below.
So now you can see that how the level of Bloom's taxonomy works, and apart from that, we can see the why we should use Bloom's taxonomy as well. So basically, the terms suggest a multi-layered answer to these questions, to which the author of this teaching guide has added some clarifying points. Objectives, organizing, right? So objectives, or we can say the learning goals, are important to establish in a pedagogical interchange so that the teachers and students alike understand the purpose of the interchange. Organizing objectives helps to clarify objectives of themselves and for students. Having an organized set of objectives helps teacher to plan and deliver appropriate instructions, design valid assessment tasks and strategies, and ensure that the instruction and assessment are aligned with the objective. And the terms that I talked about earlier. So the first was like remembering. So remembering, in other words, we can call it recalling or recognizing as well. Where and understand. So remembering what questions. Now suppose that we have covered any questions. So we will be able to ask multiple questions through which we will be came to know that are we like we our students are on the same page or not. Okay. So in between or the moment we cover our chapter or any topic, we can ask such questions. Okay. Like what happened before that scenario, what happened after that conditions, how many persons or the things or objects were involved in this, what is the definition or anything of a topic, what is that, how would you explain or describe or show in your world, in your own world, when did you recognize that this happened, who did, what did, why did, can you identify, select picture, who spoke to, who were and what were. So these are the list of the questions, and apart from that there are lots of questions that comes into this. Okay, through that we will be able to came to know the remembering power of a student, that whether they are catching whatever exactly we are teaching or not. So with the help of remembering what the learner, what the student will be able to do, how they will be benefited. Okay. So in this the learner is able to recall, restate and remember learned information. There are some recalling listing that we can say, like reconciling, listening, describing, identifying, retrieving, naming, locating, finding. Okay, or we can say that can you recall the information. In remembering potential activities and products. Okay, so what we can do, in which we can ask, make a story map showing the main events of the story. Make a timeline of your typical day. Make a concept map of the topic. Write a list of keywords you know about. What characters were in the story. Make a chart showing. Make an acrostic poem about. Recite a poem you have learned. Okay. So these are some extra activities which we can ask the students to do. Now the next level is understanding. And again in the understanding, in this level we will be able to ask few questions in order to check, in order to know whether students are understanding the term, the things that refer to a topic. So understandings refer to a comprehension or apprehension, such that the individual knows what is being communicated and can make use of the material or idea being communicated without necessarily relating it to other material or seeing its fullest implications. There are some questions which is listed here, like how would you say, tell in your own word. How would you explain this term? What do you think could have happened next? Who do you think? Can you clarify what it means by? What examples could you give of? What facts or ideas or words show? How could you explain what is happening and why? So these are some questions which we can ask. Now see how understanding exactly helps students. So in this, the learner will grab the meaning of information by interpreting and translating what has been learned. Like interpreting, exemplifying, summarizing, inferring, paraphrasing, classifying, comparing, explaining, right? So now exemplifying. If I talk about exemplifying, in with this we can ask students to give some examples, all right? Now suppose that if I'm going to cover tenses, right? And I teach students tense or simple present tense, right? I told him what are the rules, what are the structure, what are the formation of a sentence under simple present tense, all right? In order to just check whether they are understanding it or not, we can ask the student to just give some examples related to simple present tense. In the same way, summarizing, right? Suppose that we are teaching students a poem, like an English poem, okay? So we can ask students, the moment we brief, we discuss about poems, we discuss about the stanza, we discuss about the types of the poems, about the poet, and after that, the moment we finish, at least we should ask the students to summarize it in his own word. Paraphrasing, right? Paraphrasing is also an important part. Paraphrasing is something where the student can recall or repeat or tell the sentences once again. Classifying, they can put or they can classify the terms or not. So these are some terms which comes under understanding. Now in this we will be able to see now the potential activities and products, as we discussed some of the point in the previous page as well. Like write in your own words, cut out or draw pictures to illustrate a particular event in this story. Report to the class. Illustrate what you think the main idea may have been. Make a cartoon strip showing the sequence of events in the story. Write and perform a play based on the story. Write a brief outline to explain this story to someone else. Explain why the character solved the problem in this particular way. Write a summary report of the event. Prepare a flowchart to illustrate the sequence of events. Make a coloring book. Paraphrase this chapter in the book. Retell it in your own word or outline the main maps. So these are some potential activities that we have seen in under understanding. And the next term is applying. Now in applying, or this term refers to the use of abstractions in particular and concrete solution. Again, we will be able to see the questioning level in the applying term. Why is an example of? What facts would you choose to show? How would you explain what is happening and why? What examples can you find too? Do you know of another instance where? What questions would you ask? Which factor would you change if? How would you use? From the information given, can you develop a set of instructions about? Now, with the help of applying, the learner makes use of information in a context different from the one in which it was learned. Implementing. In the very beginning, we have seen the example, how exactly a student in the very beginning, they remember about the term, the lemon, right? It looks yellow and the taste of it is sour. And after remembering, they started understanding, all right? So what is the use of this lemon? And after that, applying. And the moment they learn, they know, okay, the use of lemon, they started implementing it, applying it. Carrying out, using, or executing is the another, we can say, the synonyms of applying. Now the next is the potential activities and products. So construct a model to demonstrate how it looks or works. Practice a play and perform it for the class. Make a diorama to illustrate an event. Write a diary entry. Make a scrapbook about the area of study. Prepare invitations for a character's birthday party. Make a topographic map. Take and display a collection of photographs on a particular topic. Make up a puzzle or a game about the topic. Write an explanation about this topic for adults. Dress a doll in national costume. Make a clay model. So these are some questions or the potential activities that we can see. And after that we see the term analyzing. In analyzing involves or represents the breakdown of a communication into its constituents, elements or parts, such that relative hierarchy of ideas is made clear and the relation between ideas expressed made explicit. In analyzing, we can ask students which event could or could not have happened. What pattern can you see in? What is the relationship between which things were facts and which were opinions? What was the purpose of? What was the important information and what is irrelevant? What evidence can you find to? What conclusion could you make? How would you group, sort, classify, or categorize things? Now in this, the learner breaks learned information into parts to best understand that information. And we cannot say that this happens only in science. Apart from that, this happens in any other part as well. Okay. So in this, the students will be able to learn comparing, organizing, deconstructing, attributing, outlining, finding, structuring, or integrating. Now, in like potential activities and products in analyzing. So in this we can say, we can like instruct our students to use a Venn diagram to show how two topics are used the same and different. And this is not only for the students, right? Being a helpful teacher, the teachers can also use this. Design a questionnaires to gather information. Survey classmates to find out what they think about a particular topic. Analyze the results. Make a flowchart to show the critical stages. Classify the actions of the characters in the book. Characters in the book, sorry. Create a sociogram from the narrative. Construct a graph to illustrate selected information. Make a family tree showing relationships. Devise a role play about the study area. Write a biography of a person studies. Prepare a report about the area of study. Conduct an investigation to produce information to support a view. Review a work of art in terms of form, color, and texture, or draw a graph. And then we will see the term evaluating. And in evaluating, it involves judgment about the value of material and methods for given purpose. And these are some questionnaires which can help us to just set an example or to check. Is there a better solution to? What would you say is the importance value of? Can you defend your position about? What did they choose? what is the importance of, and there are many other questions which can be go through with the help of these questionnaires. And I guess that being a teacher, like you are already aware about it, and we are also following this process. So the learner makes decision based in the depth, reflection, criticism and assessment. In this we can say that the checking, hypothesizing, critiquing, experimenting, judging, testing, detecting or monitoring. Now in this, potential activities and products of evaluating. So write a letter to the editor. So now the moment students will start writing the letter to the editor, in which they will be able to put their own point, where they will be able to share their own thought, prepare and conduct a debate. So now in this, the students would be able to learn, they will search, they will analyze the data, and they will prepare themselves for the debate. Alright, and apart from that, prepare a list of criteria to judge, write a persuasive speech arguing for or against. This is also, we can say, the part of a debate. Make a booklet about 5 rules that you see as important, convince others. From a panel to discuss viewpoints on. Write a letter to, advising on changes needed. Write a half-yearly report. Prepare a case to present your view about. Complete a PMI on. Evaluate the character's actions in the story. And the higher order thinking level, which is creative, that involves the putting together of elements and parts so as to form a whole. And the questionnaires are, suppose you could, what would you do? How could you change the plot? How would you explain, describe, show? What new and unusual uses can you think of? What outcome could you predict if? Now, thus the learner creates new ideas and information using what has been previously learned. And there are some parts as well, which is designing, constructing, planning, producing, inventing, devising or making. And the potential, like questions for remembering that we have already covered so far, right, in the questionnaire part. Now we will see that how do we use it in the classroom. Now before we will go ahead and see that how we can use or how do we use this Bloom's taxonomy in the classroom, I would like to just go ahead and play a short video which is very helpful for you, for us, that we can say. So please be watching. So here we are.
Benjamin Franklin apparently said, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn." But what do we really know about effective learning hundreds of years later? Many respected economists and educators from the world's leading universities researched this topic. They discovered that many things don't matter, such as classroom size, new technology, or fancy uniforms. Their evidence suggests that the secret to thriving students is amazing teachers. Here's what they have learned. First, we have to acknowledge that teaching is a highly complex skill. It involves a deep understanding of the subject matter and the ability to explain complex issues in simple ways. But it also requires an understanding of psychology, pedagogy, as well as a wide range of management skills in order to get the students first quiet and then excited. Rob Coe, professor at Durham University, reported that many widely used methods don't work. For example, grouping students by ability, giving unearned praise, or the idea that students can discover complex concepts by themselves. Instead, master instructors have high expectations and maximize the lesson time. But most importantly, they combine high-quality instruction with pedagogical content knowledge. They don't teach a subject, they teach their students how to learn it for themselves. In order to get it right, we have to treat and train teachers like brain surgeons. After all, they operate on human brains. Like aspiring doctors, they are best trained in the field, where they receive professional feedback when they make mistakes. Effective schools of education, therefore, train teaching like a craft, rather than an abstract science. At Sposato, a graduate school of education known for creating effective teachers, students spend a lot of their time tutoring or assisting professionals. Teachers who are already in the classroom need regular professional feedback on the job. A vast study by Roland Fryer from Harvard found that teachers who receive precise instructions together with specific regular feedback from a lead teacher will improve the most. Other good ideas to improve teachers are to ask the students for feedback or to record lessons on video and let the teachers watch themselves. Doug Lemov, founder of Uncommon Schools and author of Teach Like a Champion, identified many methods that great teachers use. They greet each student at the door so students feel welcomed and acknowledged of their existence. Later, they use a strong voice and don't stop talking until they have everyone's attention. Plus, they teach for mastery learning to ensure students get it 100% right before they proceed. But maybe most importantly, great teachers first get their students excited and then keep their attention through storytelling and engaging activities that spark their imaginations. A paper published by Stanford in 2009 showed that leadership makes a big difference too. At low-performing schools, principals hardly ever show up in the classrooms, but instead spend most of their time on administration, documents, or finance. Schools with better students have principals that get out of their office and spend a lot of time in the classrooms, supervising and developing the teachers. Together, they can make a big difference in their students' life. Economist Raj Chetty and his team analyzed the data of 2.5 million US students and 18 million test results. He thinks that instructors who are good at teaching to the test have a big impact. On average, having such a teacher for just 1 year raises the students' test scores and cumulative lifetime income by $14,500 in 2011 dollars. On early childhood education, he has another hypothesis. Great kindergarten teachers help to develop social skills, discipline, and character. Their impact does not improve test scores during the school years, but surprisingly re-emerges years later, when their former students apply those skills to advance in their careers and find meaningful and well-paying jobs. Eric Hanushek, professor at Stanford University, computed how much good teachers really matter. He found out that top teachers get students to learn 50% more each year than an average instructor. Poorly trained ones, just half of the average. That means that 10 years at school can either result in 15 years of actual learning or just a mere 5 years. This is a massive difference that mainly hurts children from low-income families who can't afford extra classes or changing to a better school. American novelist Gail Godwin once wrote, "Good teaching is 1/4 preparation and 3/4 pure theater." To see great actors in action, watch Michael Sandel from Harvard teach law, Robert Sapolsky from Stanford teach behavioral biology, Walter Mischel from MIT teach physics, or Mr. Hester managing a classroom of teenagers. Links are in the description below, and other great instructors in our channel playlists. Now, please share your favorite teachers in the comments below.
So now we have seen again the benefits of the Bloom's taxonomy and its labels. So now the question is, how do we use it in the classroom? And how exactly this will help us. So we will see this with some examples as well, so that it will help us. So now, as Bloom's taxonomy is a hierarchy of progressive processes ranging from the simple to the complex, in which it is necessary to first master these levels down the pyramid before being able to master those higher up. The framework promotes what Bloom termed mastery learning. In other words, by moving up the taxonomy, students become more knowledgeable, more skilled, and develop an improved understanding of the content they are learning. Thus, by creating lesson plans and tasks using the example of verbs in italic provided, teachers can align with the different levels of the taxonomy. By simple moving to the higher level of the Bloom's taxonomy, these verbs can serve as the basis of learning objectives. Questions of activities. These describe what we want a student to be able to do cognitively with the content about which the students are learning. The higher up the pyramid, of course, the more complex are the cognitive process involved, and as such as the students to engage in more challenging cognitive work connected to their lessons content. As part of success teaching practice, it can be necessary to scale back challenges in accordance with the response it draws. Moving down to the taxonomy as necessary, a lesson could be planned about the benefits of renewable resources, the Roman Empire, building a website, or one of the Shakespeare's poem. In all the examples, Bloom's taxonomy can be applied. An important point to consider, however, is that there can be occasions, particularly with first introduction a topic, where it is necessary to spend longer on the lower level of the taxonomy. On such occasions, we do not seek to scale multiple levels of the taxonomy in a single lesson. Instead, choosing to do this over the course of a few lessons due to the nature of the content. For example, for a series of computing lessons that teach students how to build a web page, the first lesson could explain to them about HTML page, leading an offer discussion about an example of HTML script and how it translates into a web page. So here the students will be able to go into the level 1, which is remembering. And before asking them to explain the purpose of different parts of HTML script, this will include understanding. Students would move on applying their knowledge and understanding of HTML to building their own basic web page, requiring them to solve any problem in their script that will be applying, and then investigating additional features that could be added to the web page, that is analyzing. As the lesson continues, students could be challenged further to critique their website, assessing its strength and how it could be improved, that is understanding. And at the pinnacle of Bloom's taxonomy, it would be expected for students to create something completely new or original, producing a website that fulfills a particular purpose, that is creating. Similarly, for a series of literacy lessons looking at poems, by which is John Yeats's poem, which is very famous poem of class 9, The Lake Isle of Innisfree. So now the following tasks could be set according to each category's Bloom's taxonomy. After reading the poem together as a class, the student could be asked to recite the first stanza of the poem. That will come under remembering. Before being asked where Yeats would like to be, London or the Lake of Innisfree. Okay, so now where poet wanted to be, so obviously the Lake Isle of Innisfree. That means that is understanding. Afterwards, students could move on by describing the structure of Yeats' poem, explaining his use of rhythm and rhyme, that is applying. In the subsequent lesson, students might be asked to analyze the mood of this poem, exploring how mood is created, analyzing. It is analyzing. Later on, students could be asked to pick out the imaging from the poem, evaluating its effectiveness, that is, evaluating. Finally, an appropriate activity to this finish off the topic might be to get the students to write their own poem on a similar theme, that is, creating. Another point to make clear is that the separate process of the taxonomy can be adopted according to the age group and ability of students, enabling them to access the different level of taxonomy according to the overall depth of their cognition. Level 6, creating, for example, is obviously not going to be the same for a 5 years old as it would be for a 16-year-old. Nevertheless, the hierarchy of a different level of the taxonomy remains the same. In this way, Bloom's taxonomy is related to Bernard's notions of the spiral curriculum, and this idea posits that students should return to key concepts and ideas at different points on their learning journey each time, meeting them at a more advanced stage of development. At whether depth of cognition students access their lessons content them. Bloom's taxonomy can help teachers to ensure that students are challenged. Now, and I have already shared the questionnaires, alright, for each of the level, which will help us, alright, to gain them, to raise them, alright, into the higher order thinking level. So now, in this should be used in the classroom as an active learning, part of a play, part of a guide, guided reading, differentiations. Alright. Now, a skill for learning, Bloom's taxonomy. Maybe like we are following it and we are not aware about the term Bloom's taxonomy. So that is some words, okay, which is very similar to the pyramid, to the levels which I have just shown you. Remembering can be the list, memorizing, choose, recite, quote, record, match, select, underline, cite, related, sort, show, locate, give an example, reproduce, quote, repeat, label, recall, outline. And this you can see in this here as well. Now you can go through with each level, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating, where you will be able to see the different terms as well. Now I would like to go ahead and share a next video, okay, which is again helpful for the learning process in order to use this Bloom's taxonomy. So please allow me a moment.
Active learning means you participate, collaborate with others, and apply concepts to the real world. It requires hard mental effort, but leads to better retention and an understanding of the material that can be transferred to other situations. To understand why active learning works so well, it helps to know that when our brain decides what to remember, it asks itself two fundamental questions. can I understand? And do I need to know? When you ask, can I understand, your brain always puts the new information on the foundation of existing knowledge. If the foundation is missing, the brain has no idea what to do with it, and as a result, it throws it away. In other words, your brain needs to build foundational neuron connections for new information to attach to, which is both why active learning is more mental work, but also essential for learning. When we ask ourselves, do I need to know? Our brain separates between the material it finds worth to remember and the one it can forget. If it's unlikely that new information will ever be used again, the brain is smart enough to throw it away. If your brain finds that the information is needed again, say it could increase your social status, the brain will store it in long-term memory. To stay there and be easily recalled, you just have to periodically use or think of it. To understand how active learning is applied in classrooms, let's look at the teachings of Professor Carl Wieman, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist and a leading proponent of the method. There are 4 steps to it. Step 1. Prior to class, the students read up on the fundamentals of a lesson so they get an idea of the terms and basic phenomena. In class, Professor Wieman starts with a brief introduction and then gives questions to solve. He will have students use clickers, a little device on which students can answer multiple choice questions. Alternatively, or for more complex problems, worksheets can be handed out. Step 2. Wieman projects a problem and asks all the students to select one of 3 possible answers using their clicker. This has 2 benefits. First, the teacher gets an idea of how many of his students already understand the topic. And second, the students are now focused on the question. They want to know if they are right. It is important, though, that the question is both challenging and interesting. All this takes less than 5 minutes. Step 3. Without telling the students how they voted and following Eric Mauser's peer instruction method, which involves questions, peer discussions, votes, and group discussions, the students then discuss the question and their answers with 1 or 2 classmates, ideally with someone who disagrees with their own opinion. During the discussion, the students have to come up with a reason for their answer and why the others may be wrong. Meanwhile, the instructor is circling around, listening in to gauge student thinking and answering brief questions. Then there will be a second clicker vote, and only now the results will be shown. Typically, the second vote will be much better than the first, as students learn a great deal from their discussions. An ideal question will have about a third correct on the first vote and 85% correct on the second. All this takes around 7 minutes. Step 4. Now the professor leads a follow-up discussion with all the students to provide feedback, exploring the different reasoning, which one is correct, and importantly, which is incorrect and why. Only at the very end, Professor Wieman will explain the correct solution and answer follow-up questions. Ascertaining the students' understanding from the questions they ask, he decides if it is time to move on, all of which takes around 10 minutes. There are 3 reasons why active learning works so well. First, the students are actively working on interesting problems. And, as they all voted for an answer right at the beginning, they have a stake in the outcome. That means their brains decide that the information covered is important to be remembered, and are hence more receptive for learning. Second, by solving problems alone and in groups, they dive deeply into the material. Explaining to a peer engages novel mental processes. As a result, they construct new synaptic pathways inside their brains. Third, the explanation from the teacher comes only once the students already formed their own thoughts about the concept. At this point, the explanation makes more sense as the brain can connect the new information to all the thought it had just built. The correct answers have a solid foundation. A large body of research has shown big differences in the outcomes between passive and active learning. In one carefully executed experiment, physics instructors taught their course in 2 ways. Some classes were taught in a conventional style, and others using active learning. Even though the teachers were the same and the students were similar, on average, the active learners doubled their understanding when they were tested at the end of the course. Other experiments have shown that long-term retention is higher as well. Students that take conventional lecture that is followed by a test forget around 90% of the material within 6 months. In an active learning environment, students can retain more than 70% of what they have learned 2 years later. Sometimes, teachers show a problem and then demonstrate to the class how to solve it. They believe that they can just transfer their own thinking into the student's head through an explanation. Unfortunately, for new ideas, a brain doesn't work that way. Unless the brain actively constructs those ideas within, it is as if the material was never heard. How about you? Have you ever learned in an active learning environment? And if so, how does it compare to learning the conventional way?
So now again, with the new video, we again have seen the benefits of the learning of the Bloom's taxonomy. You will be able to get this information in order to these all curriculums, and I would like to share you more about it. So it is important that all learners are given appropriate opportunity to develop their thinking skills, and these skills can be developed across a range of contexts, including through more practical or applied learning opportunities. So when I talk about it is important that all learners are given appropriate opportunities. So in this, the teacher's role is most valuable or most responsibility that they will go ahead and carry it, because they will be able to frame, they will be able to help the students in order the process of learning. And apart from that, they would be able to help them to develop their thinking skills. And then these skills that they will be able to go ahead and create their own future. So now this is all about Bloom's taxonomy, and I hope that you liked it, and I would love to say that this was a very interesting session. And apart from that, how we have gone through with the each labels as well. And thank you.